What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? You're on another episode of Chiefs Focus Live. JP, Quentin, and Caleb. What's up, fellas?
Doing pretty good. Not bad for the most part. Football's finally here.
Thank God.
49 days is when Kansas City kicks off against the Lions.
Let's
Is it
go.
crazy to think that it's 49 days away?
Preseason, 1 week off, and then football.
There we go.
It's crazy to think that.
Not that I'm counting or anything.
I mean, it's just crazy to think it's going that quick. I mean, usually, it's weird. Usually we're sitting here and usually about this time and we're complaining and saying, God, this is so boring. Or there's, there's been a couple of years where there's been a ton to talk about because of so much controversy or trades and just things going on. Right now, it's just like blah. But I do want to give a shout out to Boo Boo Smith. For anybody that doesn't know who he is, he's an undrafted free agent, played at Mizzou, played at a couple of colleges. He did some JUCO, did a JUCO stint, and went to Mizzou. Very, very strong returner. He came into camp for a little bit. He's hoping that he comes back during training camp. We had him on the show yesterday. He is a really good kid. He's got that 4.28 speed. He's not, a giant guy. He's that McCole Hardman size guy, maybe a little smaller than McCole actually. But he'd be phenomenal in our system on the return side of the ball, whether it be kick or punt returns. He's got it. And here's something that he said to me, and I was going to tell you guys this. He went to 3 different colleges and is actually interviewed with, 5 or 6 teams. But he's never had a special teams coach or seen a special teams coach draw up special team plays. And I started thinking about it, and he's actually right. The only one in the NFL that actually does that is Dave Taub. So I kind of asked around and checked around about it. He actually has designed plays for special teams. And he said that was something that he wasn't used to because all the yards that he gained in college were his own yards. It was like, it was that impromptu, do what you have to do to make the play happen type of situation. And he wasn't used to a situation that he actually could follow blockers and figure out where he's supposed to go. And he just loved being his time in Kansas City. He said his introduction to the NFL was awesome because of Kansas City. And I think that's awesome that, he was able to meet the cool guys. He said he loved Andy. He loved Dave Taub. Loved Nagy. Absolutely loved Nagy. He's a wide receiver. Now, understand something about this kid. He's played football since the age of 5. He has played pretty much every position. Cornerback, safety, wide receiver, return specialist, running back. There's nothing he really can't do. So when you're looking at a versatile player that you can get in on the cheap that would fit within our system, that's the kid you want to run towards. And I have a feeling he might end up back on the Chiefs. We know we got 91, 92 guys sitting. Agreed. Got everybody on here right now. What's up, Scott? And I agree with you, Arrowhead News and more. Sign him. He fits the system, and I think he'd do very well. And he's from Missouri. He lives in Raytown. So, in fact, his best friend that he calls his brother went to Virginia Tech, and they are working out together. They're traveling together. They're going to his visit teams. He wouldn't give me the teams that he had visited. I tried to get it out of him, and I said, look, I don't want you to get in trouble because that could get you in trouble. So don't say it if you think it's going to, because I kind of know the rules, the NFL rules, and that can get you in trouble, especially if you got an agent. And he's got great agents, by the way. But I gave him 3 teams that I did not want him to go to. I said, look, bro, I just don't want you to go to these 3 teams. And he goes, I got to know who these 3 teams are. And I said, well, I don't know who you visited, so I'm going to spit it out. I said, number 1, first of all, is the Raiders. I said, not for any other reason, the fact that I absolutely hate the Raiders and I've been through hell with them for the last 30-some-odd years. I said, but it's just the fact that I want to see you succeed. And that is not the team you're going to succeed on. I said, but then Cincinnati, no, please no. And don't go to the Bills. I said the Bills are a dumpster fire right now. When I said Cincinnati, his face, he just kind of backed up and he was hiding his face like this. I'm thinking, shit, he's already visited Cincinnati. So then I said the Bills, and I said, look, man, the Bills, they're a turmoil team. I said, if you want to go back and listen to our shows from 2.5, 3 months ago, or maybe even before, we were talking about the dumpster fire that is the Bills. And you see it came out to be true. You know, Diggs is not happy. They're not trusting their coach. They're not trusting Allen. Allen and Diggs don't like. Well, let me put it this way: Diggs doesn't like Allen, so it's just a nasty disaster of a team up there. So stay the hell away from them. And he was just cracking up. He's a really good kid. I hope and pray he makes it on this team because he would definitely be a valuable asset in the special teams room, and that's where he thrives in that area. I mean, you got to think about something. If this is a kid that basically went off script on every ball that he ran back through 4 years of college, and then also went through that during his visits, and the only team that he went to and actually got to return balls on a script was Kansas City. And he said, Dave Taub is awesome.
Yeah.
He said, man, I've never seen a special team coach that actually has designed plays for special teams. And he has them. So I hope and pray one of my buddies or one of our guys from the Chiefs are listening and bring him back in for another shot because he deserves to be on the team. He wants to be in Kansas City. So I want to give him a shout out because he's a very good kid. I like him a whole lot. You know who you reminded me of, Caleb?
Who?
His demeanor is Charkander Quest. He is just a happy, very mellow, go with the flow type of guy that has the intensity. He has more intensity, I think, than Charkander did, and I didn't know if I should say that or not. But he does. You could tell he has more intensity and more drive. But his mindset and his demeanor reminded me a whole lot of Charkander Quest. He would just be that guy that would lighten up the room. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting kind of see, but hopefully he gets another shot at the Chiefs or just general in the NFL because it's very difficult. But moving on to training camp, Quentin has some quotes for us about.
Well, we kind of buried the lead here. We have some real NFL news, like actual important NFL news that we need to get to.
What are you saying? That's not important?
Well, this is a little bit.
I mean, he's a free agent guy, and I mean, he belongs in the NFL, so that's important.
The Commanders have been sold.
Yeah, that was coming.
So that's something that I just wanted to, before we get into the Chiefs a little bit more, I wanted to talk about that. That the worst owner in American sports is now no longer involved in American sports. It sold the team for over $6 billion after buying the team in 1992 for $800 million. It's just crazy to think about.
He had to pay $60 million in fines, though.
I was getting ready to get to that. On his way out, the NFL slapped him with $60 million in fines.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was agreed upon, by the way, because it was a lot more, but they decided to agree and settle on $60 million. So, I'm glad he's gone.
I mean, God, maybe this means that the team will get a new stadium and they might stay in the Washington, D.C. instead of moving out to the suburbs like the discussions were going on. Because now that you have a new owner, maybe the city will want to work with them now.
Exactly.
Because we knew that the city of Washington, D.C. was just not going to work with
Daniel Snyder
because he was just like incapable of working together with the city. So maybe that means they're going to stay within the metropolitan area and not moving out to the suburbs. But there's
a twofold to that, Quentin. So it wasn't just the fact that the city didn't want to work with them. They were going to work with them before he made the big stink about Jeff Bezos buying the Washington Post and then pushing for the fact that he'd sell the team. So he was the one that vetoed Bezos from being able to put an offer in for his football team, which he could legally do. He made a big stink with a lot of owners saying that it was a conflict of interest given the Amazon thing, which it's not. But regardless, whatever. he has another plot of land that has been sitting there for years that he purchased to build another stadium on, but they would not allow him to do it. The city said, no, you're not to build another stadium here. You can keep the land, do whatever. You already bought it, but we're not going to work with you. We don't want to deal with you. It's over with. So the prerequisite to that team being sold was that they had to buy that plot of land with it. Now, they could probably, and they will, be able to build another stadium on that other plot of land that's still in the Washington, D.C. area. So I think that's going to be a good thing for that team and the fan base as a whole, because they get to still watch their team in a stadium that they don't have to worry about the bleachers falling through and they all die. So that's always a plus when you don't have to worry about dying when you just paid for a football ticket and parking. And so that's a plus. I don't know if you guys think it is, but when half the bleachers fall apart.
I mean, player safety, right? I mean, that stadium or that field is just known for destroying multiple knees.
Ankles.
Like big less hip last year.
Smith, right? I mean,
yeah.
there's a long history of that field killing teams, players' legs.
Yeah. And the fans sure as hell, I mean, they're pretty important too, because
they won't have to worry about crap falling down
not
too.
To get raw sewage.
Exactly.
That would be nice. The sewage thing.
I don't ask for much in life, but I prefer the sewage to go away.
Yeah. Hey, who was that band that was traveling over the bridge in New York, and they were in their tour bus and decided to release the tank that held all their basically toilet tank, and it dumped all over people in their cars below on the bridge? The Dave Matthews Band. That's kind of like how Daniel Snyder was. They actually did that, by the way. They were driving along and somebody decided just to go ahead and dump the septic tank over the bridge, and it just covered people in their cars. So that's Daniel Snyder in a hole. Thank God he's gone. I mean, we've been pushing for that for a while. Yeah.
Are they going to have a parade?
They probably are going to. Someone's drafting plans somewhere.
The city's paying for that shit. The city will pay for that parade.
There'll be children out in the streets throwing candy.
Man.
Yep.
Man,
it'll be interesting. I mean, now, he's gone. To be interesting to see what's going to happen with some of these other owners, especially if some of them die who are kind of up there in age within the next 5 to 10 years. It'll be kind of interesting to see how the landscape of that's going to change. I am kind of curious to see with this group. What are they going to – are these individuals, more specific, the guy at the head? I don't remember his name from watching the news, but is this person going to be a proponent of Roger Goodell, or is this person going to be an ally? Because we see over the last couple of years, people have the NFL owners have kind of went against Goodell a little bit, not in full numbers to where he can get kicked out, but there's been some stuff like that. So I'm kind of curious to see how that dynamic's going to happen, because there's always a coalition led by Jerry Jones and other people.
Well, Jerry Jones was his only friend in the NFL. So
it'll be interesting because, like, the Commanders or Washington, whatever, the team that resides in the Washington metropolitan area, they went to like 5 Super Bowls within a 15-year time span or something like that. They won 3 of them. And then once Dan Snyder bought the team in 1992, they haven't done anything. I think since the 90s.
I bought him in 99.
96, I thought. Well, we can.
Whatever. I wasn't born yet. Time doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He bought him in the 90s, and since then they haven't done anything. So I mean, I think they've been to as many NFC Championship games as the Cowboys have since 2000. So
yeah, absolutely. And think about it like this: he was a young 30s. How should I word this? He was a very young 30-something-year-old in his early 30s, daddy boy billionaire. He didn't come from – he didn't make his money. He came from money. So he got handed money from his daddy and decided to buy a football team. And at that time, if you wanted to spend $800 million on a team and you had the resources to do it, that was okay. The NFL was kind of letting people in because they wanted – they had – right prior to that, they had a couple of franchise teams pop up, and it was just one of those things. But they soon realized what a mistake it was, and he had a long-term contract with that. What's he saying? Breaking news: Josh Harris may change Commander's name to erase Snyder's legacy. That's pretty good. But he for all those years he had a long term contract with the city, lease contract, I should say. Then he bought the land. Then he bought another piece of land. He was playing it the right way for a while, as far as playing the game, the money game, but he was an idiot. I don't know how his wife stayed with him.
Well, when you get stuck in, and this is one of the things, when you get stuck in all those scandals and your name's always popping up, you're not doing something right, and that's just kind of one of the things we see. And unfortunately, it's one of the issues that has happened specifically for him. And there's always, I think, probably since 2012, no, about 2010, 2012, before RG3 got there, even when RG3 was there have always been some sort of story that has wiggled out of the woodwork, and it's just like, really, this is what it's come to. And I think it speaks also to the integrity we see with Clark Hunt. There has been no scandals, no rumors. Everything's been by the book, professional, and that's what you need in order to run a good organization, an exceptional top tier one. Because of that, that's why individuals like Clark Hunt have a lot of respect. When we look at the guys from Washington, all stuff, it's a laughing stock. Everyone makes fun of them every single year because of their owner. And unfortunately, he is a reflection of that franchise. No matter, he's always going to be a reflection of them and things that have happened because of the stuff he's done in the past. Now, that's under new leadership. Hopefully, under this new leadership, these can happen, and also old issues and these can be erased. But I believe moving forward, that's good for not only them, but the NFL brand, because it seems like, and maybe they'll write a book about this, but there's probably some worse things that were uncovered that did not want to be shed to light.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That when you have, a group of the NFL owners hire a third-party person to come in and investigate itself, that's not truly a third-party investigation. It's not truly an independent investigation. What's crazy to me is if you just followed the rules from kindergarten, you could have just lived your best life, man. Keep your hands off people and don't steal. It's not hard. It is not that hard.
Don't eat Elmer's glue.
He stole the money. I don't understand how you steal the money and basically pocket that. I'm like, dude, you're already a billionaire.
Don't take other people's shit. Don't touch other people that don't want to be touched. It's not that hard. I've been doing that.
It's like
for years. Give me $1 billion.
It's like you guys are eating ribs. You guys both have a full slab, and I come in with a knife, cut both your half slabs of ribs, and run away.
Or just snag one right out of your hand when you're eating it and just take a big ass bite. I mean, that's just
basically what he was doing.
It's sad, with the things that he has done, and I'm not going to say allegedly because it's true. When you have orgy parties with your players and your head coach, orgy drug parties, and they know that's true. That was one of the reasons why he was fined. You're doing something wrong. So there were certain players that, of course, didn't go to that, but there were certain players that sure as hell did.
And you see with those issues, no matter how big or small, it ultimately affected not only the football team, but the NFL brand as a whole. And we know one thing. Roger Goodell does not want a brand that is tarnished. He wants a brand that's going to be upheld and basically is written by the book and does the right thing. That's why we see whenever an issue happens with an owner, prime example, Jim Irsay with the Colts, when he got arrested for DUI, they took care of it very quickly. I mean, they want to keep a squeaky clean image to the best of their ability. Now, that's very difficult with thousands of employees working for NFL, including the owners and things like that. And this is the last thing I'll say with this before we move on. There have probably been a lot of scandals that have been avoided and been able to be fixed because of the stuff that the NFL has done and not done behind back doors to stop stuff from happening. I would not be surprised at all.
I mean,
well, I like what Magruder said. I'll never forgive them for letting Alex Smith almost die, and he's not wrong. They did, and they didn't care.
It was just a crazy work environment to try, because that's what it is. It is a work environment, and everybody knows that if you have toxic leadership, that trickles down. And even if you're talking about the front office, that gets to your players because if you've worked in a place where your boss sucks and your boss treats you like garbage, or your boss comes in and they have a bad attitude, that bleeds down to everybody.
Absolutely, in every business. It doesn't matter where you're at.
Who comes in every day knows about all of the drama that's going on inside of your work environment. You read about it, you hear your friends talking about it, your friends inside the NFL and outside of the NFL talking about how shitty your owner is or how horrible your work environment is, from how the cheerleaders have gotten treated to how the women in the front office are being treated. You can't tell me that doesn't distract you. So that does affect the play on the field.
Absolutely.
So to get rid of Daniel Snyder it's fantastic. It sucks that, he's getting paid $6 and some change billion in order to get kicked out of it, because it's like, that's like the worst punishment ever. Yeah, I'm going to take your toy away, but here's $6 billion.
So you can buy another one if you want, or another league, or another team.
That's it.
You're right. And the sad part is he owes no money other than the lawsuits. But he owes no money on the stadium. He owes no money on the field. He owes no money on anything. Because when he bought the team, he bought the stadium at the same time.
Yeah,
I mean, it's.
I'm curious about this. Do they cut him a $6 billion check right away, or is it increments paid?
It's wired.
Okay.
No, it's all paid at once, and it's wired.
$6 billion at one. Wow, that bank account's for
it's financed through a bank.
Yeah.
What they do is
the problem. If you want to get into the financials, is the reason it took so long for it to be sold to this Harris Group is because the NFL you have to have a certain percentage of the cash up front, and it took a long time for this Harris Group to get all of that money up front. I think the number was 30%, that the primary owner of the team had to put up 30% of the team's value in order to purchase it.
Gotcha.
So that's why
this took so
long, because I believe it was last November or December when the original reporting came out that Dan Snyder was looking to sell the team. And it took this long because the primary owner, which I believe is Harris, who also owns an NBA team.
Yeah.
I think he owns the Sixers, right?
I think you're right.
So you have to put up 30% of the finances up front.
Well, and that doesn't mean the primary owner. What it means is that your ownership group has to put up 30%.
No, the NFL requires the primary owner to have 30% of that fund.
Then that must have changed, because it wasn't like that prior.
Organization the NFL likes to have one face of the organization.
Yeah.
So the primary owner of the Commanders had to have 30% of that fund by himself.
Well, I know what they do is say if you've got 5 investors that come in, they put their money into it's kind of like having a prepaid debit card. So you put your money in the bank, and then you buy the team, and you make payments back on your own money. And that's kind of smart, because what you do is you're earning interest on your own money. So it's a very smart move. But that is a requirement as well, is that it is financed to some degree. You can't just walk in and stroke a check. You have to and you used to be able to, by the way, there was never a rule before that you had to have. Yeah. I mean, there was never a rule before that you had to have 30, the primary owner had to have 30% up front. It was either you had a conglomerate of guys that were able to purchase the team and had enough money in reserves for any incidentals, or you couldn't buy the team. So I don't think Harris was struggling for money. I think it was just a matter of who he was bringing in, what he had to move around, stocks, bonds, whatever money he had to move around to put that money into the bank to prove that he had it.
Yeah, it's that he had to get that 30%. And, I'll be interested to see how the team spends money moving forward. Right? Like, is this going to be I need to recuperate some of my investment before I, put a bunch of signing bonuses up in the next few years? Because reportedly this guy is a Washington D.C. person. Like that's where he grew up. So that's always good to see when you get like a hometown person to buy your team, so there's no risk of it moving. It's like when John Sherman bought the Royals. He grew up in Kansas City, so you weren't worried about him leaving. So it's always nice to get somebody that's from your area to buy the team. So you have that like emotional tie to it. It's not just for the money. It's not just a business investment. It's like I actually care about it.
Yeah. Well, last thing I'll say about it is that it says a whole lot about Daniel Snyder's reputation and his demeanor and his really who he is. If Jim Ezra can smoke crack and take pain pills and do a bunch of lines of cocaine off some girl's ass, and
allegedly,
and still own a football team. and then Daniel Snyder is gone that quickly. Now, I will give Ezra the benefit of the doubt. He went to rehab, I think, 5 times. Allegedly, I'm going to say it that way because I know it was more than once or twice. And he's finally gotten himself straightened out. But it just tells you a whole lot. And again, the only friend in the NFL that Daniel Snyder had was Jerry Jones. He was the only one that was lobbying for him. Everybody else wanted his ass out. Oh, I take that back. The guy that owns the Texans kind of lobbied for him as well for a little bit. And then that went bye-bye too after he got ousted by a few other people for doing it. A lot of shit goes on in the NFL circles that a lot of people don't hear about, but we've known about this for a long time. Caleb and I brought this up on the show, back in October of 22, I think it was, that we knew he was going to – they were forcing him to sell the team.
It was just evidence was just mounting up over
Yeah.
time and time and time. And eventually it came to that point. So
Thank God. Anyway,
but let's go and
moving
move on to a happy note. Chiefs training camp.
Love
Yes,
it.
sir.
Wood.
Quentin, you have some quotes.
Yeah,
for
I
us.
think something interesting that's come out of training camp is Wanye Morris talked about him playing either side. That's the 3rd round draft pick,
Yes.
tackle that the Chiefs picked up. He said that, first of all, he said training camp's going to be hell, was the quote that he gave, talking about, Andy Reid's training camp and how now even the rookies coming in start to hear about how bad it's going to be. But the thing that I thought was interesting is that he talked about how he's confident playing either side. When he was drafted, we talked about he had about 2,000 snaps in college playing the tackle, and it was like 1,100 at left and 600 at right, or something like that, some degree of that. So the fact that he says he's comfortable with playing either one makes me more confident moving forward. Like, we know he's not going to be the starting tackle at either position heading into the season, but we talk about this a lot, versatility of players, right? So if somebody gets hurt, if something happens, you have a guy that at least on paper is comfortable with playing either position in the NFL, and maybe he becomes your left tackle of the future, in the next year or so. So him standing in front of the media talking about how important it is for him to know both sides and his showing no hesitation to get on the field and to play both sides, I think is great.
Good.
I do too. I agree. And Caleb, if you remember, I think it was Tuesday's show, we talked about this, and we were talking about Donovan Smith, and everybody was so concerned with him. I think there was a couple of fans that were concerned with him that were on the show, and this is why I wasn't concerned about the offensive line, because of a player like him, because he is able to play. He's very versatile. He's very athletic, and he can step in and do what he needs to do when needed. If for some reason Donovan Smith isn't 100% healthy, we have a healthy scratch right there. We have a healthy backup. So,
well, and here's the other thing: when you Kansas City Chiefs, the last 3 years have drafted 2 offensive linemen from Oklahoma, Creed Humphreys and now Wanye Morris, and I would not be surprised the next year or two they get another offensive lineman. I mean, they're finding the hotbeds where to get some of these players. Before that, they got Kennard out of Kentucky. So they're finding pieces that can be, number one, could be a project like a Kennard, or a guy like Morris that can be eased into it. So I like that because we're adding valuable depth. We're not having the repeat of what we had at the Buccaneers Super Bowl, where Mahomes was running for his life on a hurt foot, throwing balls all over the place and just doing everything. So with all those different things that are happening, I believe the Chiefs are taking the right approach. And yes, Wanye Morris says it's very difficult, but here's the thing. I don't know if he would agree with me this, but I'd rather have the craziness in training camp to figure it out. So by the time it gets to the regular season, it's just going and playing. That's pretty much what it is. Because at the end of the day, even though Andy Reid makes the training camp the most difficult, the most hardest, it prepares you and lets you know this is what it's going to be like in the regular season. And then it's a breeze for the most part. Yeah, there are going to be some ups and downs. There are going to be some good games and bad games. But at the end of the day, what we're going to see is that I believe guys like Wanye Morris could have the potential to do some really great things, similar to what we saw Creed Humphrey do. So I can't wait to see, because I think this team, this offensive line is only getting better and better by the year with quality backups as well.
I agree. And one thing I will say is I don't know what he meant by it's going to be hell. It could be just the fact that Andy does put him through a regiment that's, hey, what's up, Chiefs Live? That puts him through, a pretty hard regiment. But everybody that I have spoken to has said it's fun. They have a whole lot of fun during camp, or even OTAs for that matter. Even Boo Boo Smith said the time he was here, he said it was a lot of fun, which he wasn't used to. Usually it's not fun. Usually you have coaches that aren't fun. They're not allowing you to do what you want to do, to make up plays, to do different things.
The Chiefs are they're less military of a style. Yeah, they're structure, but within that structure, as long as you do what you're supposed to do, things are going to can be done. It's
and
not
I like
this, and this.
Yep, and Philip, he's right. He said Rashee Rice will have 81 catches, 900 yards, 8 touchdowns. He's out there doing D-Hop, Devontae Adams plays already. And I know somebody, I can't remember who it was, that made a whole lot of fun of me for comparing him to a little bit of Devontae Adams. So I think it was somebody on this show at one time. I can't remember who that was. But anyway, he does remind me a whole lot of the way Devontae Adams plays. He's got a lot of that in him. You know who else has some of that in him too? Is somebody that Quentin just does not like for some reason. I don't know what it is.
We said we'd not bring that man's name up. He has not made a
I'm
catch
going to bring
yet.
it up. I'm going to, you know what? I'm
He
going to
hasn't
put
even
it
made
up
a
on the
catch
thing.
yet.
It doesn't matter.
No, we're not
He's
doing that.
done-
He hasn't even made a catch. He hasn't even made a catch.
When he makes a catch, I'm bringing his name up.
Okay, you can do that then, but we have not heard him in months. It's been. It
Well,
feels
we'll
like.
see. We'll see. We'll
Okay.
see what happens. I'm telling you. Rashee Rice. Anyway, yeah. So I think Philip's right. I think he's going to be a beast in this system. I agree. He's going to be a beast. I think Rashee Rice is going to really. And by the way, did anybody see any chatter on Twitter? I missed some of it. Somebody had brought it up to me actually on a phone call that apparently they were slamming Rashee Rice for a couple of passes that he missed.
I didn't see that. I mean,
yeah,
it's his first training camp, so some stuff like that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean,
he's getting used to different things.
I mean,
it
every
wasn't
player
surprising.
has drops in training
Yeah,
camp.
Tyreek Hill had 8 drops in the
Yeah.
season. So it's going to
I
happen.
mean,
yeah. And how many
Patrick Mahomes
how many
throws
times did he get the
interceptions.
ball intercepted in front of him?
What'd you say,
too?
Quentin?
I said even Patrick Mahomes throws interceptions in training camp.
Exactly.
That's what I'm
That's why
saying.
I want
Yeah.
you to make your mistakes. I want you
Yeah.
to make your mistakes
Mm-hmm.
when it doesn't matter.
Yep. You're just making both sides of the ball better by going that route. So, but anyway, I think Philip's right. I think he's going to be an animal.
Yeah. Okay.
We have a really good wide receiver.
I
Coach.
think you two, if not in this show, but we need to have a season starts. You two need to have a bet, and everyone needs to tune in by the end of the year. We have to see we'll find out what the bet is. I think you two need to have one because this wide receiver debate, you both need to pick a wide receiver you think that's really going to do well, and we'll see what goes from there. Because you guys have
Justin
opposite
Jefferson.
Oh, he's going to go off script now.
views. Oh,
Let's just, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I got $1 on it. But yeah, I don't.
I prefer to make my bets in
Well, you can't here in
aluminum
Missouri.
cans.
It's illegal. Oh, aluminum cans? Okay. we can
Yeah,
do that.
aluminum cans filled with some sort of fermented wheat.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Preferably like an
That's-
ale.
or possibly some sort of maybe a type of road, not a
Yeah.
street
Yeah.
or an avenue,
Starts with a B,
possibly.
ends with an Ard. Yeah, we can do that too. Well, anyway, go ahead, Caleb. Finish what you were saying.
all I was gonna say is I think that at the end of the day, with these wide receivers group, I was concerned we didn't get a D-Hop. But guys like Rashee Rice, I mean, people made a big deal that he threw up. I mean, at the end of the day, those things are going to happen because this is a big training camp. But when you look at guys like Rashee Ross, Justin Ross, KT, all these other guys as a whole, they've been working and working and working with Mahomes. So it's not like they're just jumping into it. Like someone who just waits all week to take the test doesn't suddenly just jump into it. No, you have to study, and that's one thing the Chiefs have done. And when I notice that and see this happen, it makes me think, evidently they have some hope and some faith in these guys because, number one, I believe that Sky Moore last year, like 225 yards receiving. I can see Rashee Rice breaking that by 6 games in the season. I think he is a very good shot if he gets quality playing time. if he gets quality playing time. I can see Rashee Rice jumping that bar, maybe not getting 1,000 yards, because I know Philip has said that too. I think he can get between 600 and 800 yards. So say 700, 750. That's what I think is very possible. I know, Quinn, I know, but I'm just saying he's at least going to crack 225.
I think it's tough to say because he's what, the 5th wide receiver on the roster
right now. That's right now. That doesn't mean he's going to stay there.
I'm just
Danny Shelton was on the practice squad last year, and he's second on the depth chart in the defensive line room right now. So it doesn't matter where you start; it's where you end up.
Moved up on the roster because of roster losses. Rashee Rice is new. You know,
but
you've got
MVS, and didn't.
Tony, Sky Moore. I think Richie James is in front of him right now.
That's only because he's a rookie and nobody else is.
Yeah, we talk about how difficult it is for wide receivers to adjust to this system.
That is a fair point.
Specifically rookies. Mm-hmm. There have been 2 rookies in Andy Reid's history as a head coach who have come in and immediately been a big impactful player. One of them is a future Hall of Famer in Deshaun Jackson, and the other one ended up playing a long, solid career in the NFL in Jeremy Maclin. And both of those guys, when they came in, they were immediately 1 and 2 on the depth chart because in Philadelphia, that roster had just been stripped down to parts. So
that's why they were
jumped. It wasn't even necessarily a skill set. It's not like they came into training camp and blew everybody away, and that's why they started. It was because they drafted them. There was nobody in front of him, so they started. That's not what it's like here in Kansas City.
Okay, well let's get into something really quick. So the reports that are coming out of Arrowhead, they want to put Pacheco as like a 3rd down back at the start of the season, and I was a little curious about that, so I made a couple of phone calls to find out why they would want to put him starting the season, as a 3rd down back, or slack off on some of his production. One person said that it was taken out of context, that they don't want him to be solely a 3rd down back and be basically on a snap count. They're more concerned with him being completely healed prior to going out there and doing what he did for the last 3-4 games of the season, including the Super Bowl, and playing, re-injuring himself.
He's wearing what?
A quarterback jersey, a yellow "Don't touch me" jersey.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
So that's to me, I don't think it's as concerning as they've made it out to be. I think maybe they get through camp, they reevaluate him. He may start on a pitch count. Maybe I'd say game week 1, week 2, but I don't see that lasting very long.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think?
My prediction is this: they're going to use him, but they're not going to run him in the ground per se, because he's very valuable and you want him over a long length of the season. And I think what they could do is this: obviously McKinnon's going to be there. Maybe, and I believe maybe their hope is that Pierce could take some of that burden depending on how he's doing. He's getting a lot of love within the organization. He's been kind of the focus this last couple of days. So I'm very curious to see what he is going to be able to do. So if Pierce is able to exceed expectations and kind of help take some of the load, I think we can really see a 1-2-3 punch combo of these 3 guys, specifically towards the end of the season and into the playoffs. Because Pacheco is coming off that shoulder surgery and that hand surgery where he tore a rotator cuff and broke his hand, and still played the Super Bowl. So that is a little concern, especially that he's wearing the yellow jersey, "Don't touch me." So it is a little concerning, but I think what they're going to do is kind of ease him into it. Don't put too much on him, kind of what they did last year. Let Clyde take a lot of the load until it came to a certain point and Pacheco took his job. I think we're kind of see the same thing, but Pacheco's still going to kind of be RB1. And then we're going to see guys like Pierce and McKinnon are going to be fighting for 2 and 3. They're kind of going to share it. And eventually it's going to be a 33 split, in my opinion, when it comes to the end of the season.
Give Philip because I like that comment right there. He got a double ding. Going back to the wide receiver situation, Jamar Chase did start off 4th in the depth chart, and he ended up 1st on the depth chart within the first season. Just saying. Just saying.
And is now playing with his college buddy.
Well,
think it's
Doesn't
all
matter.
apples and oranges there.
What do you say here?
Um,
Rashee Rice will be Andy Reid's rarest wide receiver as a rookie since Jeremy Maclin in Philly. I'm not going to.
If that happens, I'll be very surprised.
I mean, I'll say this about Pacheco. I'm not worried about it. Look, very rarely do I get to relate to a professional athlete, but in this case, I can't because I also had shoulder surgery last February, and it's one of those things where you don't know what you can do until you do it because you feel good, right? You do all your physical therapy, you work it out, and until you put the stress on it, you don't know what you can take. And for him, sure, he probably feels good now being a guy who is just going out on the field in shorts and a t-shirt, taking the ball off because he hasn't been out for 7-on-7. So people aren't even like near him. He's been out on the sidelines. So it's just,
which is killing him mentally right now. That's just
to
destroying
start
him.
taking those hits, right? Whether it's in training camp or in live action, you just don't know. You don't know what your body can be up to. You can feel confident about it. You can do all of the work and strength and repair, physical therapy, all that fun stuff. But you don't know until you hit it. To me, it's like a knee injury, right? It's like your knee can feel great. And if you're just a normal human being walking around, the city, your knee can be fine. But as soon as you try and make that one cut on a football field and someone hits you, who knows if that injury is going to, hold up. Surgery is going to hold up. So
similar like the McCall Hardman situation.
I think that this is going to be something that they're going to take very cautiously because they know that Pacheco doesn't really need the extra work, right? They know what you have in Pacheco. Pacheco's been in this offense. He knows this offense. You want him to get, you want him to keep getting work as he can. So put him in the don't touch me jersey, keep him around the team, but give other guys an opportunity to see what you've got in them. Prince, I expect because of this to get a ton of work. I expect Clyde to get a ton of work while we're in training camp now because we know what McKinnon is, right? Do we really need McKinnon to go out there and get a ton of work? Probably not.
We don't. We already know what he does.
Let's get Clyde the work. Let's get Prince the work and some of these other guys just to see what you have and maybe some of these other undrafted free agents. But
you think they're going to carry 4 or 5 running backs?
No.
They're going to keep 3.
Yeah, they're going to stick with 3.
3 and put one on the practice squad.
I bet you Prince beats out Clyde.
I don't know.
The
Clyde, they
contract,
may
man.
keep him. They may keep Clyde. Unless a trade happens, they're probably going to keep him.
Unless they justify keeping 4 running backs on the roster because they don't carry a fullback this year.
That's a great point, too. Because this is you could either take an extra running back or you could do something such as a wide receiver. So it's going to come down to that.
I could see them carrying 4 running backs because they don't have a fullback this year. So that room would have the same number of people anyway, so you can keep doing the same numbers that you've done in the past.
Well, you just got a new label.
Pacheco's, that doesn't bother me. We got 49 days.
You got a new label. Just letting you know. Now you're Skip Bayless.
Well, Quentin, you take that notoriety and just run with it. Don't worry.
That's fine.
That's all. That's all.
I'm not putting expectations on a rookie wide receiver who was like the 6th. No, what was he, like the 4th wide receiver taken in the class to come out and have 900 yards?
Now, this was Calvin Johnson, would you change your tune? If this was Calvin Johnson coming out and they were expecting great things, would you change your tune then or still no? Calvin Johnson.
I just think we should look at the history of an Andy Reid offense. And the entire year we talk about, man, it's difficult to learn this offense. And the history of the Andy Reid offense and his 20-year career, I love you, Philip. I love you too, Philip. So the 20-year career of Andy Reid says that rookies don't openly succeed with a ton of statistics their rookie year. Now, there are plenty of guys who are really good their rookie year and then progress throughout their career as they move on. But just their rookie year specifically, they struggle because this offense is freaking hard.
Oh, I agree.
On top of that, hold on. I'm not done yet.
Yeah, let him have a spot.
Let him finish his rant. Let him finish.
On top of that, we've got other guys that are in front of him, like clearly in front of them on the depth chart. Tony, MVS, Sky Moore, right? Who are just clearly in front of him on the depth chart. Plus, every time we talk about the pass catchers in this offense, we have to talk about Travis Kelce, who's going to get the numbers of a number one wide receiver, a Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, a Justin Jefferson, right? He's going to get those number of targets. So I just don't think the opportunity is there. No matter how skilled he is, no matter what his skill level is, the opportunity is not going to be there. So it doesn't matter. He's going to be – it has nothing to necessarily do with his skill set. It has to do with the fact this is a hard offense. It's always been a hard offense, and he's just not going to see the field that much.
So my question to you is, do you think he at least exceed 225 yards receiving?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, we agree with that.
Like 6 yards. Okay.
Well, we know that.
Let me see. What did Sky Moore get last year?
He got 225. That's why I brought it up.
Okay, that's reasonable because what does that mean? That means he goes out on the field and, maybe there's an injury to one of the guys in front of him, right? Mm-hmm. So he ends up, getting a few targets in a game rather than getting no targets, and he's able to excel, right? To get 225, you have like one decent game and you're almost there.
So, okay, well, let me ask you something, Quentin. So I'm going to bring this up again because this was a conversation that we had yesterday with Boo Boo Smith while he was working with Sky Moore, and he actually watched him during college as well. He said, that man has the stickiest hands I've ever seen.
Who? Sky Moore?
Sky Moore. He said, and he actually brought up his stats, and I can't remember. He knew the numbers like right off the top of his head, but he dropped one pass in college. One.
Yeah, Sky Moore had the biggest hand size coming out of college that year.
Yeah, he dropped one pass during his college career. So I see Sky Moore as a huge, huge, huge help in this offense. I do, but you have mentioned this yourself numerous times. It's very rare that a wide receiver goes 17 games without an injury.
Yeah.
So, just put it into perspective. I mean, somebody's probably going to have a game where they get hurt. They may only be out one game. They may only be out, a half a series. Who knows? But somebody's going to step in. If you go back with Andy Reid and you look at the Caleb's favorite, why can't I think of his name right now? Mr. Run Backwards. Oh God!
Why is this
talking about?
What's his name, Caleb? Why is his name?
Robinson.
Oh, Demarcus Robinson?
Yeah.
D-Rob.
Oh, yeah.
So, D-Rob.
It paid me, Quentin. Okay. I had to deal with that for a year. It was not fun.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah. So, D-Rob got a lot of play time for a guy that even his second year, he got a pretty significant amount of play time because he was really basically fourth on the depth chart. There was another one by the name of Chris Conley that nobody had any faith in.
Chris Conley was good, though. I got to give Chris – yes. But think of this, though. Chris, in this test with Quentin said, out of the 5 years Chris Conley was with Kansas City, he, even his last year when Mahomes went off, he said he still did not grasp the playbook. I don't know how.
There's the numbers right there. There's the numbers. Sky Moore, 2,050 receptions, dropped one pass. Is that what he's talking about?
I have no idea.
I mean, even in Chris Conley's last year in Kansas City, that was in 2018. He had 334 yards.
That was one of his better-esque years. And he had 5, 6 touchdowns, Quentin? Does that sound right? Or 4?
Yeah, I think he had 6.
He had 5 touchdowns.
5, yeah. Okay. Well, my point being is that you had guys that were considered not the best at their position, and they jumped around on the depth chart a lot, but they were also in games when they were needed. And I don't see how we can sit here and go, okay, well, we got Tony, Sky Moore, MVS. Those are the 3 main guys, and then Travis Kelce, of course.
Yeah.
And not expect these other guys to get any kind of significant play time. Somebody's going to get injured. Somebody's going to feel the pain. And Rashee Rice is going to step in. I feel like he's going to get some play time, especially if we're, blowing somebody out, or it's third quarter and we're up by 20 points, you're going to see him on the field. And that's when Andy likes to really put, we're playing the Raiders, great example, and we're up 36-10. That's when you're going to see these guys come out, and Mahomes is purposely going to target them just to get them the reps and get them into game playing mode, because those guys have to be in that game playing mode. I mean, it just is what it is. Brad is right. Sky Moore is one of the best route runners we do have. I mean, he's a phenomenal.
That's why the Chiefs drafted him. I've been telling you guys for the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
The reason why the Chiefs have picked specific receivers is due strictly to the route running. That is one of the reasons why we're not getting the Terrence Marshall that everyone. We're not getting all these great players. We're getting guys that can route run. He can do all positions of the route tree. That's important, because if you don't have that, well, I'm sorry to say, it's going to not look good for your team later down the line. So to have guys like this can do stuff, run all these different areas, take the jet sweep too, it's just always going to open up the offense more. But there's one thing I want to talk about kind of on the defensive side, because I know we've been kind of
Before we move on, I got one more.
Okay, go ahead, Quinn. Say your piece.
Demarcus Robinson, his last year in Kansas City, he had 264 yards.
Okay.
And his best year in Kansas City came in 2019, where he had 449. That was 4 years into his career. So I'm just saying that even a guy that we think about as someone who played every game and was that fourth or fifth option in this system is not very productive in terms of in the large scheme of things. It's important,
but he wasn't
to have
as good
guys like that, but they just don't get the opportunity. So I'm just putting it out there.
Oh, I get what you're saying. I just my point behind that was that he's not. I don't think D-Rob was anywhere near as good as Rashee Rice. So I think that's where the difference comes from. When you've got great players and you're able to utilize them and take some of the workload off of other wide receivers, that's not a bad thing. To be able to stick them in there on a third down.
But if you get 20 to 45 receptions, you're not getting 800 yards.
Well, no. But you're talking about an entire season.
That's the reception level that Rashee Rice is going to end up with this year. I think he's going to have 35 receptions.
For the entire season?
Yeah.
Oof. That'd be low.
Is it? Because Sky Moore,
I think that's realistic. I think 35 to 45
Sky
would be
Moore got
realistic for
22.
a rookie.
Yeah. Well, Sky Moore also had a different group of guys. You got to think there was Juju Smith in there. Then you added in Tony.
now.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying. Then you added in Tony. So Sky would have probably gotten a significant amount more yards and opportunity if they wouldn't have brought Tony in. So I'm just saying. And just say if for some reason Juju wasn't there. I swear I turned that ringer off. But anyway, regardless, go ahead, Caleb. Move on to your next.
I would say this is very offensive heavy. And one quote I did see from the defensive side of the ball, I kind of want to talk about what you guys want to hear your guys' thoughts. So it stems from Mike Edwards, safety who played for the Buccaneers when they beat the Chiefs, yada, yada, yada. He signed with the Chiefs. And he said a very interesting quote about Brian Cook, one of our safeties, and kind of paraphrase. He's saying basically to paraphrase what he was saying. He was saying this individual, Brian Cook, is a leader. He's already calling shots in his second year. So how does that make you guys feel about the defensive leadership? Do you think this guy could be another great Chiefs safety in the making, like Tyrann Mathieu great? Or do we think this guy can – or do we think we're overreacting just to the little training camp clips? Because for someone who's calling shots now and did fairly well last year, I have to say I think he's on the right track. What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I'll be quick with my comments here so we can get out of here within the hour. I'll just say this, that Kansas City recently has a history of developing good leaders and picking guys that are good leaders. Cook looked great in his limited opportunities last year, great in pass coverage, great in zone. The reason they drafted him was to replace Juan Thornhill, and if they weren't confident in him, then they would have found a way to keep Thornhill or would have signed someone else in free agency / drafted somebody. So moving forward with Brian Cook, I'm completely confident in him because the system has shown the ability that it works with getting rookies sort of that year of sitting, then moving them into that position to where they can become the best version of themselves. That's it.
JP, what do you got?
I I don't doubt that he is going to be as good, if not better. And I say that just because of what we've seen out of him prior, but also the fact that he was brought in to replace Juan Thornhill, which was, that was kind of one of those things that it irked me a little bit just simply because of the situation that he was put in. But he did drop off after his injury. Then he started to pick it back up again. And then, of course, it was contract time, so it was time to move on. But I feel like he's going to be he might be one of those guys that gets a second contract with us, and a significant second contract. I feel like he's that good. And for those guys to have that much faith in him says a lot, in my opinion. If he's out there calling plays now, can you imagine, or calling the shots? Mm-hmm. Can you imagine what he's going to be like on the field?
I mean, let's not forget, he was part of one of the greatest defenses we saw, not last year, but the year before, with Cincinnati, with guys like Kobe Bryant and Sauce Gardner back there being kind of the quarterback of the defense. Mm-hmm. So he played fairly well. So the Chiefs knew what they were doing. It's not just one player, it's an entire group. And having him as a quarterback of the defense, per se, he showed his leadership and kind of see things he did throughout the playoffs. I mean, the one play that kind of sold it for me was whenever he had the tip up interception to Williams. So it just shows me that this guy is very smart, great football IQ, but knows what to do in certain situations, but is a good leader. And I just can't wait to see. I mean, with some of the quotes I've been looking at and seeing, I believe this team is going to be pretty good moving forward in the future, especially going to training camp. A lot of great stuff's going to happen, so I'm ready for it.
All right, what's Brad saying here? He says, look at it this way. Rice is the closest thing to Juju in this offense. I think I think you're right now. We'll have to see where he's at later on. I think he has the tangible to maybe be better than Juju, but we don't know yet. We'll just have to see how that goes. He said Brian is going to cook. I agree. He is going to cook.
Downvote. Nope, not today.
We just have to see how it plays out. It's one of those things that we're not going to know anything until they're actually on a real football field. We always get hyped up during training camp. We were right last year about a lot of the players. I mean, there was guys that came in, played exactly how we thought they were going to play during the season while they were in training camp. Some of them exceeded our expectations. So we'll just have to see how it goes. That's the luxury of having an open training camp the way we do, because people that understand the game can actually see what's going on and see the tangibles. And Andy, he makes them work for it during training camp. I mean, yeah, the first week it's a little soft, but when it comes to pad time, it's pad time.
Yep.
So, it's time to show what you can do. And when's the first cut? Anybody know what date?
They used to be incremental cuts, but that's no longer the case.
Yeah, it was week by week.
Yeah, but now it's not like that anymore. I think there's like 2 cut days now, right? There's cut like after training camp right into the first preseason game. I think you have to get it down to 75. And then after the third preseason game, you have to get your 53-man plus your practice squad and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we will see. The COVID practice squad thing is a huge help for us, for everybody, really. But I mean, it helps us a lot because we're able to keep on some guys that we may have to cut. Or we would have had to cut. And also with the IR situation, it's always nice to have an extra couple spots there. So we may be able to hang on to a few guys, or maybe even pick up a couple of guys that are floating around right now. They're looking for a job. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. But anyway, with that being said, I don't know what else you guys got, but I think
we covered everything.
About it for us. Anybody got any questions on the panel real quick? Any of you, anybody listen to the show? Do you have any questions really quick before we jump off of here and call it a night? I'm going to give it the old Jeopardy countdown, and then, wait a minute. What do we got here? We got a comment. Let's see what it says. our secondary is going to be better, more picks in 2023, and able to keep 3 quarterbacks without costing it. That's true. That is a nice thing to be able to keep 3 quarterbacks without costing a roster spot. Thank you, San Francisco. That was all you. So that's always a good thing. But other than that, if you guys don't have any questions, we can wrap this one up, and we will talk to you guys again on Tuesday. Peace out, everybody.